What is up? I said that so many times just because I have to give the stream a couple seconds to get rolling. Sometimes they cut off the beginning and the end. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about melody and harmony, and that includes chords. We're going to be talking about how I approach these elements and just some things I've learned along the way that I find help. We'll probably get into some sound design too, because that ties into the second subject, which is tension and release, and tension and what's the word? Resolution. Resolution's a very important word in harmony and melody, and resolution is a concept that you can apply to things beyond melody and harmony. I'm not talking about resolution like 4K resolution. I'm not talking about resolution in terms of New Year's resolution. I'm talking resolution as in the problem has been resolved. So let's get into the Ableton Live. And I just need some random thing to write a melody with, so I think I'll go for some Ableton sauce. Let's use tension. If you've been sleeping on the tension bed, it's time to wake up. Tension's pretty tight. So, just to make this sound good, I'm gonna probably chuck a little bit of effects on it. So I'm gonna get my good old turbo reverb. Not M-Tubro, M-Turbo. Let's get a reverb going. There we go. So nice little reverb. All right, so we got like a kind of a guitar sound right now, but we have these different exciters here on tension, and these are pretty cool. So I like this. Well, I like them all, but this let me get a little bit more dry wet here. So there's a way to make this ball bounce. I think maybe the damper or something. There we go. Yeah, that little bouncing ball. sometimes... why is this ringing out? So the reason why I chose a plucky sound is because whenever I'm starting on melody, I often find it really helps to start with something called an ostinato. Hold on, let me see if there's an EQ in here. Ah, screw it. Okay, so an ostinato is like a little phrase or a little thing that repeats. It can really be anything. Like if I just get a random sample, I can just get any sample. I can get any sample. Here's a little modular synth sample. And then if I just take a chunk of this and repeat it, we could technically call that an ostinato. See how that works? So as soon as you have like an ostinato in there, it just makes everything a lot easier. So I'm gonna write an ostinato here. And if you haven't seen my video on rhyme scheme, you should check that one out too. I'm gonna use that rhyme scheme. So I could either draw this in or play it in. I think I'll just draw it in. So I'm just gonna create a little phrase. I'm gonna use the triplet grid. So I think that I will take a phrase like that and do dotted. So I'm gonna go to 3/4 of the way through this half bar, which would be right here on 1.2.3, and just kind of repeat that. And then I'll have it reset on the bar. And just to put that in context, I'm going to put a little rhythm. Just get a random break beat. So let me go in here and go to my breaks. Because that type of rhythm, that like weird dotted rhythm, is pretty cool, but it's hard to figure out what it's doing until we have a rhythm that's holding down the quarter note. So I need like a quarter note thing. I really like these Matt Zoe breaks. Yeah, these are just so nice. Matt Zoe just did a great job on that pack that's on Splice. Highly recommend. So I'm just going to stretch that, put it on repitch. And to stick with our triplet vibe, I'm going to go in here and just put these hats on the triplet. That way we have that triplet vibe. So we can make this ostinato more repetitive and consistent by simply adding some sort of delay to it. So I'll just go in and get the echo effect, and let's do like a half note delay. And that way each half note's going to kind of overlap, and we'll get this cool kind of woven thing. So the echo has this really cool mid-side mode, and you can do a different echo for the side. I haven't seen this in most delays. Really cool. So let's do a quarter note. Let's do quarter note delay on the sides. just gonna take a transient shaper to this drum loop just to make it a bit more slappy. Okay, so that's a lot of delays ringing out. Let's just freeze that and flatten it, so we don't have to deal with the delay. So now that I have this ostinato, I can really easily, I can really easily start to layer harmonies over it. So a quick way to do this, I like to just hit Control C, Control T, Control V, and then I have it there. I can unfreeze that and just turn it off, and then select one of these plugins, hit Command or Control A, and then 0 to turn it all off. So let's get tension again. And for this type of thing, I like to have a note that's an instrument that can be sustained. So this first instrument, it's a plucky instrument, and so it makes for a really good instrument for ostinatos, in my opinion. But you can have a sustained ostinato and a plucky lead just as cool. The main thing to recognize here is not that one's better than the other, but that they are different, and that is going to help them stand out from each other in the mix and create a separation, which is really important. You don't want everything just bleeding together into one mush. If you're going to write melodic music, you may as well get some separation in the mix. So I think a bow. So let's get some really short reverb on here. And I'm going to use a short reverb because I want it to feel like it's closer to me than that ostinato. So I can use like a room. So I could go into these rooms and pick one of these small rooms. I'm also just going to EQ it. And then maybe a little bit of grain delay. So some gated grain delay there. I don't know about this band pass. Let's do low pass. All right, so that's pretty cool kind of violin lead sound. Okay, so here's a little line I just played in. So let me explain what's going on here. So I chose this line because first and foremost, it just sounded good to me. But after that, so I found this note and I was like, that has some cool tension to it. So fun fact, this melody, this ostinato is kind of just doing a D minor type beat. So that's a D. And you can see I'm landing on the D here at the end of this 8-bar section. Sorry, I think it's a 4-bar section. So all that being said, the point is I'm doing the rhyme scheme thing where you have this kind of motif of this do, 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 which is a rhythm. And then I change the notes, but I keep that same kind of thing, do, 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 but I add this little grace note here, do, 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 just to set these two sections apart. So this could be like A and a B. And right here, I'm landing on this note, which is a C note. And that is playing a whole step below the root note. So if I play them together, you can hear that it has quite a bit of tension to it. Not as much tension as the half step, but it has enough tension to create the need for resolution. And that's why here I resolve to the root note. And you can see here I'm completely avoiding that root note. All these notes are hitting around the root note, but none of them are hitting that root note. And you can see that also, this is another thing I do in a lot of my melodies, where it's like up and down, like a wave. You go up and down and up, down and up and down. So that can really help the flow, because waves are very flowy. And here I'm creating tension and then creating resolution. So those are the two basic concepts to understand when you're creating a melody is you want tension and then resolution. You want to be able to create tension, and you create tension by just kind of avoiding those more harmonious notes. Like if I go to the 5th, which is very harmonious, it's a good note to hit along with the root note, which would be like this. It's a very solid foundation, and it doesn't have a lot of tension. So if I go up to the root note on this second note right here, it still has tension because it's higher up than the root note, and it's it's still pulling to the root note, but it's not pulling as hard as some of these other notes. Like what if I go to the 6th? See, that's too much tension for me in this vibe so far. Yeah. So this seemed like a good kind of emotional way to go. And this is another thing I do in a lot of my melodies, where I'll have like clusters of shorter notes and then longer notes. And the longer notes are kind of the more important notes, so which is why I hang on to them for a bit longer. So let's kind of keep going here and create another instrument. So we have two kind of physical sounding instruments holding down the bass, B-A-S-E, bass of our composition. And actually, we could create some chords first. So with this instrument, it's a string instrument. It makes sense to make chords with it, obviously, like ensemble. So I could select all these and just copy, paste, and then shift up arrow to do the octave. And I'm going to actually consolidate this. So what I'm going to do here is another kind of cool trick. I'm going to go down I'm actually going to go down with these notes. I'm going to go down an octave with those notes. Oops. Okay, yeah, I want that. So this is actually too low to really go down there, so I'm going to go back up above with the octave. And then I'm going to create a kind of a cool thing here where I'm going to just hit this invert button. And this is going to mess up our notes. It's going to sound bad. But what I was going for is this cool kind of mirror shape. So now I'm just going to mess with these notes and find something that sounds good. So one thing I really like doing with chords is actually duplicating the patch and then doing one line on one patch and the other line on the other patch, so that I have two different instruments that can sound different. See, already I can turn that top line down a bunch and change the filter cutoff. That bow is just too harsh for this top line, so let's try the plectrum. Jesus. So if I want that to be more sustained, one thing I can do is just add a delay, like a pretty tight delay. So one thing that's really important with melodies is to choose a hierarchy. So these are turned down, these ostinatos are turned down more than these lines, and this top line, this higher line, I decided to push that back behind this main line. So this is not only sitting on top in the frequency spectrum, but it's also sitting behind it. And something to save on space in your mix that's helpful is to share reverbs. Sometimes it's good to just share a reverb. So I'll put both these parts in the same reverb so we're not being redundant. So before I do a lead melody, I think it'd be nice to have some bass in there because that's really going to give us a whole new level of context. So I'm going to get, I guess I'll use like a Moog type bass for this. Let's see. Cherry Audio, where are you? All right, so we got the, oh, actually, I'll use something a bit cooler than the Moog. Let's use the ARP 2600. Sorry. I updated my OS and now all my plugins want me to relog in. Windows 11. Okay, so now we have something, we can make a bass with this. So first I'll turn the reverb off. Why does it sound like it's going through reverb? Because it's in this group. So this is our violin group. I can close that now. So I think we'll just do a basic low pass bass. And then we can turn the distortion on and distort it. So synth for the bass, it's gonna complement all these more natural sounding timbres. So let's play around with that. So I often have to do this when I'm writing melodies, is change key. You can see how this note, it's not really registering because it's so low. It's too low to really hit on most speakers, and it's kind of too low to hear exactly what note that is. So if I move everything up a couple half steps, I want this to land on the D. So 4 half steps. So I'm going to just move everything up 4 half steps. And this is going to definitely change the vibe, but it's probably going to be a good trade-off because we'll be in we'll be able to hit those super low notes. just doing a little bit of kind of fine tuning now. These high notes are a bit too loud on the bass. So I'm going to use the loudness as kind of more of a punch and then do some automation like that, just so that those high notes don't overpower everything in the mix. Even though they're the same volume as the low notes, because of the Fletcher-Munson curve, our ears perceive higher frequencies as louder, even if they are the same volume as the lower frequencies. So there's a curve where on the EQ, our ears are more sensitive to this mid region from like 100 hertz to about up here at like 12. And then our ears start getting less sensitive again. So that's why you'll see a lot of times I'll boost up here in the super highs and then start to attenuate in this middle section so that everything sounds a bit more balanced. And then the sub can usually be pretty loud. So I think now that we have like a little bit of side chaining going on, a little bit of bass line, I guess I could talk a little bit about this bass line. So without the bass line, and then the bass line changes the vibe. It makes the vibe more kind of soulful and sad and emotional. And that's because of this note and this note. The way that I'm... also, if you look at the trajectory, it's actually a little bit different than the violin line, where the violin line's going down and up, up and down, up and down. This is going down and up and down. So that's kind of complementary. And then, you know, by hitting this note and this note, I'm just creating a vibe that's kind of more, I don't know, longing, emotional, sad. And, you know, I could create a whole different vibe by doing a different bass line. Like if I just hit the root note, it's going to have a lot less tension and emotion. So that kind of stuff didn't work as well as this kind of more emotional thing. So here's a cool trick with lead melodies. So I'll put all this in a group and call it support. And I will quite often usually have a support group separate from my leads group. And then I can make a lead. Let's make like a square wave lead. We could use the ARP again, or we could use something else. Let's use Loom. So we've got this like organic sounding physical modeling. And then for the bass, we have that like old school analog sounding bass. And then if we have like a different kind of synth for the lead, then they'll all stand out from each other because they're all different kind of types of synthesis. So for this, I'll use Loom, which is like a additive synth that's very digital sounding. Well, it can sound pretty analog too if you want, but it's really good at those digital spacey sounds. So I'm going to dial in a sound here. So we could do like an effect. Some pretty cool filters in here. Let's do comb filter. So let's do LFO 1. And then let's do like a unison. So can do detuned. I'm going to modulate that as well with LFO1. A little bit of envelope 2. We could add in another oscillator. So let's see, basic shapes, modules, organ. A little bit of distortion. This phaser is pretty crazy. And then maybe do like a sidechain reverb. So I really like the M convolution reverb multiband for this. So we'll get the M convolution reverb multiband edit. We'll do like maybe a church or some sort of something cool. Let's try rooms. Yeah, something like that, pretty big room. And then on this volume tab, you can actually just create a sidechain right in the plugin. And I can make it fully wet and then group it, let the dry signal through, and then on this reverb, I could put like an amp just to distort that reverb a little bit. And then just EQ that so that's in the background by doing like a Abbey Road style. So a little lead sound. That's my preferred way of finding leads is just noodle around and then hit capture when I hear something that I know was kind of an accident but sounded cool. That's kind of like my own vibe. So once I have a little nugget like that, I could create a lead from that. But first, on this support, I'm going to just put a track spacer. You could, if you don't have this plugin, you could use the multiband compressor, which has a sidechain input. It's basically just a sidechain, a compressor that's specifically for doing this sidechain ducking type thing. I'll label this lead. And then on the support group, track spacer, sidechain from lead. And then you'll see it'll duck all this support stuff out of the way of my lead. That last part was kind of cool how that happened. That was another accident. So similarly to how I did those support melodies, I'm going to have like a kind of a cluster of fancier notes and then just something that's simple and repetitive right here. I'm going to try to actually find something by playing. So that's kind of more of like a verse type melody. It's really telling a story. And now I'm going to try to write a hook, which is going to be kind of more simple and repetitive. Something simple and repetitive. So yeah, that's my basic kind of 2 cents on melody and harmony and how I like to create it. I hope you learned something from this. I think it sounds pretty cool. Rough because I made it on a tutorial video, but you'll see a little bit of my sound design process for instruments and a little bit of concepts. There's a lot of good concepts in there, I think. So I'm sure I missed some things, but yeah, those are the general kind of basics. Remember to think about tension release and resolution and clusters of notes, different timbres to help things differentiate from each other, and multiband side chaining. The ostinatos. Yeah, all the good stuff. So yeah, until next time, I'm Sephiros. Check me out on everything. 5EPHR05 is how you spell it. Check me out on Patreon if you want cool samples. I also offer private lessons, track feedback, things like that. over there. Yeah, check out the Twitter to hear my thoughts and updates on my process. YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff. Same name everywhere. And until next time, I'm Sephiros. Have a great rest of your day or night. Peace and big up.